Hi everyone, this is Angelica Hungerford. I am doing my final presentation on the topic punishment, forgetting, and shaping. So with punishment, I'm sure everybody really knows what punishment is. So it's just pretty much the negative response that a person has because a specific behavior is done. It usually tends to be an adult or a person that's maybe older than you and is usually done like from a child to a child, and in some cases can be like in work relations. So you do something wrong, you get punished for it. And then there's two different types of punishments. It's negative and positive. Negative refers to like when our behavior is weakened because something is removed from the situation so that behavior won't happen. So an example would be when we had did our worksheet and it discussed that how a boy got in trouble for fighting, and in order for him to stop the behavior, the school removed him from school. So that would be an example of how a negative behavior works. And then negative punishment. And then positive punishment is whatever that behavior is decreased because there's a consequence at the end of that. So usually if a child touches a hot surface and they burn themselves, that's their consequence. They touch something that was hot and they burn themselves, so they won't continue to do it. There's different types of ways to, I guess, stop a behavior other than punishing, and one of them is the response prevention. So the best way to discuss what a response prevention is just remove or change up its environment so that behavior doesn't happen. That way they're less likely to get in trouble because of that behavior that is less acceptable. So for the example, it would be the 10-year-old is mistreating the family dog. So the best way to change that behavior would be to separate the child and the dog from one another so that the behavior doesn't keep continuing. So if there is no temptation for the child to mistreat the family dog, then that behavior won't happen, therefore leading to there'd be no quote unquote punishment, or the child wouldn't get in trouble. Though it's not physical punishment or like anything in trouble, but it does kind of seem like it's a negative punishment because it's removing the issue, the stimuli, which would be the dog. But in some cases, more than not, it's more referred to as a response punishment because it's changing the environment of where the dog is being placed and or the child. And then the other example would be extinction. So extinction is pretty much just repetitively presenting the conditioned stimuli alone. So the best way to describe this is like it would be the same scenario as the previous one, but the dog is in the same room as the child. That way the child and the dog are in the same room, but the child won't be allowed to play with the dog or interact with the dog. So it's more of like a taunting thing because it's not a punishment, but it's just like the child can't have the dog. So now moving on to the next one would be forgetting. So forgetting is pretty straightforward as well. It just pretty much refers that people don't know what to do. They don't know how to do the things that they used to know how to do. So that there's 7 techniques that help people forget, there's 7 techniques to reduce the possibility of forgetting. They are overlearning, practicing with feedback, distribute practice, testing yourself, using mnemonics, use context cues, and take a problem-solving approach. For overlearning, that one's pretty straightforward. It's just learning everything to the max so that there's no room for forgetting. And then the second one is practicing with feedback. So an example would be that you're taking a quiz and you get immediate results right afterwards just to see how well you did. So you're practicing for the test, you're using a quiz to see how well you retained everything. And then distributing practice is pretty much spacing out your time to study or practicing for an exam. So instead of cramming all of it into one session, the best way would be to space it out. That way you're able to retain more information. And then the next thing would be like testing yourself. So that would be like once you've gone through all the flashcards on Quizlet, then at the end you test yourself just to see how well you were able to gain the information that you learned. And then mnemonics is using things, tools, any things that can help you memorize stuff. So in my upcoming example, I'll talk about the memorization for the order of the metric system. And when I was in elementary school, we were taught it's the King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk, and it's the each letter of a word starts with the same letter as the metric system from top to bottom. Or another one is PEMDAS, so parentheses, exponents, multiplication, etc. So, and then an example for that would be an acronym. And then using context cues, so like when you're using flashcards and you notice a word, a definition, like let's say it's like 3 words on the flashcard, and then that one word also happens to be on the definition, so it helps you retain the definition because it has those context cues that may help you remember the information that you learned. And then taking a problem-solving approach, it refers to making a scenario into your own situation, so something that you can relate to, that's something that is, so taking what you've known, putting into a equation, or putting it into an issue that you have of your personal, and using it. So making it relatable to you so that you're able to understand it a little bit better. So the example that I use to kind of help with some of those is practicing a quiz. Like I said before, practicing a quiz to ensure that a student, if a student was trying to gain or learn the stuff that they were supposed to learn, then testing themselves through, let's say, Quizlet, or taking a practice quiz, and then afterwards testing themselves just to see how well they got. So that would be technique number 4. And then another example is that students, if I was a teacher or professor and I was teaching students how to memorize or give them stuff to help them memorize the mnemonics, so like they would take a worksheet, find key terms, and then come up with a way for them to help them memorize. So in here, my example is the same one I said before. The King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. That would be the best way to memorize the order of the metric system from highest to lowest. And that one is technique number 5. So now I'm moving on to shaping. Shaping is pretty much just sculpting any specific behavior through reinforcement. That's about it. And then there's 5 tips that the book discussed. And it's, I'll read them off. The good shaper, the first one is good shapers reinforce small steps. Now that one's just like going little by little. So like let's say you're teaching a child how to put a puzzle together. You show them how each piece goes in with each piece and how another piece does it, because it has to have the same shape. And the second one is good traders provide immediate reinforcement. The third is good shapers provide small reinforcers, so rewards, giving them treats. The fourth one, giving good shapers reinforce the best approximation available. And then the 5th one is good trainers back up when necessary. And then moving on to the shaping trainer dog example, it's to show that the dogs can try and shake hands, or teaching how to shake hands. So the only steps that I would use would be step 1 through 3. So the first step would just be guiding the dog on how or what they want to do. Then the second one is teaching them the process of shaking and the constant motion, reinforcing the repetitive behavior. And then the last step would be the reward once the dog has completed that task, and the behavior is done on command. And then there's 5. So I want to go back into like the 5 tips and here's some examples so that it's more easily relatable, and so that you know how to distinct the tips. So I used how a baby would be walking as a way to show how shaping the behavior works. So for tip 1, it's the behavior that a parent would want to do is teaching their child how to walk for the first time. So that would be the parent or the trainer conducting that behavior. So showing them how to walk or standing them up. The second tip would be the trainer showing the process of how the baby should walk, and we'll reinforce that through encouragement or reward. So telling them, "Oh, look at you, you did so good," as an example. And then the step 3 would be any reward that the parent gives the child. So that would be like a key, or jingling some keys so that the baby can walk towards them and then they get them at the end, or some snacks, or going to a specific parent, etc. And then step 4, if the parents see that the snacks aren't working, they may try and outweigh their options and find something else. So like maybe keys or their favorite toy, maybe walk to another parent. And the last one is that, if anything's not working, parents may try and lower their standards so that they will discover their best option. And that is it for my slide. Thank you.